Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cities Skylines Pittsburgh. In this double-length episode, I'll be showing off a lot of the progress I've made recently in this recreation project. Over the next 45 minutes, I'll be featuring the residential neighborhoods of Highland Park, Morningside, and Upper Lawrenceville, as well as a fully vanilla build of the Pittsburgh Aquarium and Zoo. Off camera, I also completed the neighborhoods of Garfield and Stanton Heights as well, so stick around for the final cinematics to see those. I'll also be showing off some real-life footage I grabbed from my visits to all these neighborhoods a few weeks ago. So sit back and I hope you enjoy the extra long episode today. To kick off today's episode, I'm building out the dense neighborhood of bungalow-style homes known as Morningside. Using the new building control mod here to change the placement mode of these homes to pathside or ground, and that's going to make it easier for me to quickly plop these homes down. I then line them all up using Move It's Line Up Objects tool, and that's going to organize the houses into these even rows like you see in real life. Heading over just a bit to the east now, I'm quickly filling out the residential parts of the Highland Park neighborhood. Once again, I'm just using the random selection feature in Find It, along with this collection of Pittsburgh homes that I've organized using the tagging feature in Find It. You can find the whole collection in the description below as well. I'll be coming back to detail this area later on in the video, but for now this will just help fill it out a bit. I'm also going to start filling in some trees in here using the forest brush tool. I use a mix of about 80% ultra low tri trees by Podomo and around 20% higher detail trees to try to allow for a bit of variety and strike a good balance between performance and detail, especially when using a bunch of trees like this. As you can see, I'm also just beginning to create these two reservoirs near the top of Highland Park. I'll be coming back to detail all of this later in the video, but before I do that, I do need to connect this to the rest of the city and highway network. The Highland Park Bridge Interchange, which I'm now starting to build, connects the neighborhood of Highland Park to Interstate 28 in the north, which also connects to downtown as well as some areas north of the city. I wanted to try to capture the early interstate design, look, and feel here, and really detail this intersection so that it looks like the real thing. In real life, it has these really tight, sharp, and somewhat dangerous turns, and I wanted to translate that over to the game. Of course, the mod's node controller and Move It are key here to get everything in order. In a few moments after I build the lock and dam nearby, you'll also see that I grab the real-life interstate signs from Google Earth and I import them into the game using the mod Procedural Objects. And that really allows me to complete the look and feel of this interchange here. For this lock and dam on the Allegheny River, I'm decided to just go really low detail, and I'm using a couple of the docks assets by Ronix and just POing them and Trying to use as little objects as possible because, to be honest, this is so far outside of the city. It's really only going to show up in cinematics once in the entire series, probably. And the main focus of this area, anyways, is the Highland Park Bridge. So this is really just a filler detail to kind of look good in the background. And as I mentioned earlier, this area would not be complete without this Highland Park Bridge Interchange sign here. And this highway sign I actually grabbed from Google Earth and imported it into the game using procedural objects. I imported it as a texture because it's a lot easier to do than trying to make it custom in procedural objects and using the text customization tool, which, if you're familiar with the mod, it works, but it's kind of painful to use. With this, I was able to get it into the game in less than 5 minutes, and it looks pretty good in my opinion. After that, all that's left to do is just the small details, and to start off, I'm using the Network Multi-Tool mod to quickly add these fences to the bridge interchange. You've got these chain link fences that kind of go along the riverside here on this interchange, and this mod makes it really easy to just snap them into place with one click. After that, I just add some pylons, and I wanted to find like the metal gantry system, or I think they're kind of called like guardrail terminals. I couldn't find the exact asset I wanted, so instead I just used some of these water barrels and made a little detailed scene here on this interchange. Later on, you'll notice I just add some turn signs and some foliage around the interchange, and that, along with this really nice bridge asset that I was able to PO, bring this interchange together for that final bit of realism and make it look like the real life thing. Now that we have the Highland Park Bridge complete and the freeway is connected to the neighborhoods over here, I think we're ready to head back over to Morningside and complete some more of the residential homes found over there. I recently upgraded to Google Earth Studio, and that's what you're seeing with my Google Earth cinematics now, and I hope it improves the quality of these videos. It's kind of like a cinematic camera extended mod for Google Earth itself. But it's a really powerful tool, and it allows you to capture these cinematic videos of Google Earth and hopefully provide a more clear image of the build I'm trying to recreate here. But let me know in the comments below if you enjoy these cinematics showing off the real life city a bit more alongside the build recreation I'm doing in Cities Skylines. With the neighborhoods of Morningside and Stanton Heights now completed, let's head back to Highland Park and start detailing this really amazing green space in Pittsburgh. The area that I'm working on now is the loop around Mount Bigelow, which is also the highest point in Highland Park. The reservoir you see here was initially created to help supply the growing Pittsburgh area with drinking water back in the late 19th century. The city has maintained these green spaces surrounding the reservoir ever since, allowing space for many different outdoor activities and some really great walking and biking paths. It also offers nearby residents a chance to enjoy the scenery and nature just outside of their door. To finish up my detailing around the Highland Park Reservoir, I actually got really lucky in this case and was able to make everything functional with this water pumping station, and it looks like the real life utility here, so I was really happy to make everything functional and still keep that realism factor. The park today is one of the largest in the city, and the entry garden, which I'm now working on, is situated right in front of the reservoir and features some Victorian design elements along with a fountain and some park seating. For my visit, I really enjoyed spending time in and around Highland Park. The natural green spaces so close to the city really allow you to enjoy the nature while also enjoying everything about city life. right within Highland Park is also where you'll find the Pittsburgh Aquarium and Zoo. This is a really popular attraction in Pittsburgh, and this build has gotten quite a few requests since I started this project. Now that I'm finally here, I had to decide exactly how I wanted to build it. I knew that I wanted this build to be fully functional, so I stuck to using strictly vanilla assets from the Park Life DLC. And while it was a major challenge to overcome building on the steep hillside terrain here, especially with these really large footprint vanilla assets, I still think it came out pretty decent in the end. I use a lot of trees to hide imperfections, but you have pretty much the attractiveness level here to become a 5-star park once enough in-game time passes. Of course, I try to also match the assets I'm using here with the different animal enclosures and attractions at the Pittsburgh Zoo. But even with the limitations of just using vanilla assets and the challenges that the terrain provided over here, I still think it turned out pretty good, and I enjoy how realistic it looks in these cinematics. A quick detour from the rest of the build today, I just wanted to quickly show off a few assets and add some of the essential services around these areas. Starting off here is the new Wilkinsburg Firehouse by Bungalow Man, and while I might not actually be able to reach Wilkinsburg in this build project, I'm still happy to be able to use this great looking asset in the city. And just outside of the firehouse, you might have also noticed these new Pittsburgh fire trucks by Apollon Driver. I want to give a big thank you to both of these asset creators for making these assets in collaboration with the Pittsburgh project. After installing the Emergency Lights Manager mod, these fire trucks are looking really great too. Heading over now to the first high detail build of the episode, we have these two homes over on Negley Avenue in Highland Park, and these were created by Bungalow Man for Cities Skylines, so I wanted to try to capture these homes in their real life position in the city here. In a moment, you'll see some real-life footage I grabbed of these beautiful homes, which actually are now apartments. And they look really great in the game too, in my opinion. I want to give a big thank you to Bungalow Man for creating these in collaboration with the project. To add a little bit of extra detail around these neighborhoods, you might also notice I'm using some custom bus signs that I did in PO. And this is actually using the new PRT design, which someone in my Discord sent over to me pretty recently. Here's some additional footage too. I grabbed a Highland Park neighborhood from my visit. As you can see, this neighborhood is just filled with these really beautiful turn-of-the-century brick Victorian homes. And this neighborhood has become a hot commodity in the city, with home prices soaring along with their really large square footage in this prime area to live nearby the city. But there also remains plenty of affordable housing if you're willing to rent. Up next, we actually have a really interesting build here. This is a cycling track on the outskirts of Highland Park down in the valley. And it looks to be around maybe a quarter-mile track, but it has these really steep banked corners, and it really made it quite a bit different from what I usually build and detail. But I have to admit, it was a really fun project to kind of work on down here. I used Node Controller to make the bank turns, and I try to really capture that cycling track feel here. It's also built alongside a police and fire station, which you'll see me work on in a moment. After completing the detailing of that backup reservoir, now it's time to head over to detail one of my favorite small commercial strips in Pittsburgh. This small commercial area is tucked right in the middle of Highland Park, and it has a few restaurants and higher density residential buildings. But what I really love is this mural here with a depiction of Highland Park itself. And I brought that over to the game using procedural objects. In order to grab this mural from real life and get it into the game, I'm basically just grabbing a screenshot of it in Google Earth and creating a PO texture from it. And from there I can apply it to this blank highway sign and just kind of stretch it to the size that I need. I also want to quickly highlight the Riverfront Park Bridge here on Bryant Street, which is a highly recommended restaurant in Pittsburgh, but it features this Belgian-inspired cuisine, and I definitely recommend the mole frite if you like mussels. With the neighborhood of Highland Park now complete and detailed, let's head over to the northwest to start work on Upper Lawrenceville. This residential neighborhood nestled along the hillside was a fun one to try to recreate. I had to make it a little bit less dense than the real-life neighborhood because I'm nearing the building limit of 48,000 or so, but I still try to capture the feel of these dense hillside row homes. You can see from the real-life footage of this neighborhood, some of these homes are actually quite unique as well. From the bungalows up in the higher portion of the hills to these row homes in the denser lower portion of the hillside, they feature different design elements and characteristics, and there's also some really interesting colors on these row homes as well. Now that we have the residential complete in Upper Lawrenceville and Shop and Save got a big upgrade to a Giant Eagle Market District, let's head down over to Butler Street and start working on the commercial and industrial side of Upper Lawrenceville. As you can see in this footage of Butler Street here, you've got a lot of small businesses, restaurants, and boutiques lining this main arterial street, which will actually take you all the way downtown to Pittsburgh. I use a lot of Smileys and Gilded Age's commercial assets here to complete the look of the area. Between Butler Street and the river, the neighborhood becomes a little bit more industrial, and it shows off the past of this riverfront. I'll be completing that shortly in the video as well. Now that we have Butler Street completely detailed, I wanted to quickly head back over and complete this really large cemetery area and green space between Upper and Central Lawrenceville. I believe this area is primarily known as the Allegheny Cemetery. To start out, I'm just drawing out some paths here, and I'll be filling everything in with some trees and some of these large cemetery fillers. Unfortunately, the image overlay that I'm using for Pittsburgh doesn't include any information for the paths in this park, so instead I'm really just using the terrain here and the terrain elevation especially to try to guide where these paths should go. Now, as I promised earlier, we're finally going to start taking a look at the industrial side of Upper Lawrenceville, and I'm going to start filling out some of the factories and warehouses that line the Allegheny River waterfront over here. As you can see, I try to capture some of the area here with this real-life footage I grabbed for my visit to the city. You cross the train tracks in Upper Lawrenceville, and it really becomes this industrial waterfront type area. A lot of this is now becoming gentrified and turned into apartment buildings and higher density residential. And it'll be interesting to see how this area transforms over the next couple decades. And now for the final detail build of the episode, and this is actually the farthest eastern point in the entire build project. We're going to be completing the Brilliant Branch Railroad Bridge here in Highland Park. And as always, Revo's various railway networks come in handy here to match the real design as closely as possible. I really hope you enjoyed today's build, and we're getting closer and closer to completing the recreation part of the project. So I hope you enjoyed the series of Pittsburgh so far. We just have a few episodes left before we begin the revitalization of the city, so if you have any suggestions, make sure to leave them down below in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching, and I want to give a big thank you to my supporters over on Patreon for making all of this possible. I've included some extra cinematics and some off-camera details as well, so make sure to stick around for the end of the episode to see those. But until next time, this has been Cities Skylines, Pittsburgh.